All right, back on Get Up, and the reverberations continue to be felt across the world of sports, from the reaction to the stunning decision by the College Football Committee to exclude unbeaten Florida State from the playoff. Yesterday, Seminoles legend Deion Sanders had this to say on Good Morning America.
Coach Norvell did a great job of handling it and speaking his voice. But you got to understand big market football. I mean, you're not going to have a college football playoff without Nick Saban, the Godfather, and the Alabama team. It's tough.
Huh. Did he just say the quiet part out loud? One wonders. There's Heather, and here's Sir Paul. Before I get to Heather with an outstanding piece on ESPN.com with all of the insight from inside that room, just quickly, Paul, what is your reaction to what Deion Sanders said?
Mostly entertained, but there is some truth in that entertainment, Greeny. A couple of things that most of you probably know, but Deion Sanders, of course, is probably the most famous player to ever participate in Tallahassee at FSU. He wanted to be the coach there, but they chose Mike Norvell. That's one part of it. On the other side, he and Nick Saban are close friends. They do Aflac commercials together. Mm-hmm. But those are the facts. We don't know what the real truth is in terms of what that committee thought, but I think Deion's zeroing in on Nick Saban as the godfather of college football probably didn't hurt their decision.
All right, but then let's go to Heather, because everything that you want to know about what happened inside that room, she has up, and an outstanding piece on ESPN.com. Recommended, in fact, required reading. Heather, what are the most important things for people who want to know what happened in that room?
Thank you, Greeny. I appreciate those kind words. People need to know why Florida State was number 5, period. And the reason for that is because they averaged 3.4 yards per play against Louisville. And the score was tied at 3 in the third quarter, while Alabama was beating the committee's #1 team. And so the selection committee watched football games together and saw how they unfolded, and then resorted to their protocol, which allowed them to look forward and ask the question, can Florida State win a national title without Jordan Travis? And the answer in the room, after voting multiple times and agonizing over the decision, was no. There are coaches in the room around the table who asked the question, how do we think they would fare against Washington, against Alabama, against Texas, against Michigan? And they came to that decision. That injury, that offensive performance on a day when it mattered the most, coupled with what Alabama did, is why they were left out of the playoff.
I want to read one quote from your piece, and it is this. A source told you, quote, people may not believe it, but we don't say, oh gosh, if we vote this way, the SEC is going to be left out. That never came up, ever. We literally look at teams, put them up against each other and say, who did they beat? Who did they not beat? Who have they beaten on the road? What's their strength of schedule? Look at the matrix and all of the data. Heather, they're obviously aware when they make this decision that there was going to be an enormous amount of reaction. But what more can you tell us about that? All the things that Deion is saying went into it, all the things that we know so many people believe went into it, the committee is telling us none of that went into it.
Greeny, people don't trust what they cannot see. And if you and I were sitting next to each other in that selection committee meeting room as committee members, this process is so secretive that I would not even know how you voted, and vice versa. So without the ability to be transparent and explain thoroughly how this process works, you wind up with outrage instead of disappointment only. You end up with fist banging and conspiracy theories, which is what we have, which is why Deion Sanders is saying things like Alabama can't be left out of the playoff, when last year Alabama was left out of the playoff. So you have emotions and outrage.
I get it, and that's right. But so, Paul, I must ask you the question. And again, I strongly advise anyone interested in the story to read Heather's piece on ESPN.com. But, Paul, I will just ask you as directly as can be asked. They're going to tell you Nick Saban's stature, the SEC's importance, all of that stuff did not factor into our decision. Do you, Paul Finebaum, believe that?
I think it probably did, but Greeny, the thing that irritates me as I heard Heather report what she understood went down on that committee is how big of a charade it is that this committee, who has the most important decision of the year in college football, is not transparent. What are they hiding? Why can't we know how each individual votes on the final vote of the year? It's absurd not to. This is America, after all, and we would like to know it. And Greeny, since we're not going to know, I'm going to give you what I think really happened. And Heather did the reporting, but I'm giving you an opinion. I think the first vote was Florida State, number 6, behind Georgia. And they got in the room and they said, well, we don't want to embarrass the ACC, so let's swap those. Because had they left Georgia at number 5, this would not be going on. It would be clear Alabama beat Georgia. But instead, they acted like a committee acts. And any of us who have been on committees know how stupid those committees are.
Our strength of record metrics had Florida State 3, Alabama 4, and Texas 5. That's the way our computers would have ranked the seasons that each of these teams had. Take that for whatever it is worth. I will start with the ACC graduate here from North Carolina. Jeffrey, give me a take.
It's hard to deal with it, but it's business, and they made the right call. And at the end of the day, them being undefeated without their starting quarterback and going to play any of these 4 teams, you wouldn't favor them against any of the 4 teams. You won't favor them against Georgia, but I agree 100% with Paul. If they were playing neutral, whatever, everybody's playing Georgia versus Florida State, you would put them as 14-point favorites, right? So
they are 14-point favorites.
So that's what I'm saying. But it wouldn't. But I'm saying and they're 6 and they're 5. Like at the end of the day, when you don't have your starting quarterback and you're going to play those, they wouldn't be favored against any of the 4. And that's a business, man. It's a business.
Who cares what you think is going to happen? Like, this the whole, if you want to project who's going to win, then why do we have a season at all? Let's just all get the committee together and name a national champion before the season starts. This is absurd. If you want to go through and say that, what do you think is going to happen? Some of our greatest sports memories are a result of an underdog getting an upset. We don't know what happened to Florida State. I wouldn't bet my palatial estate on them, but I think that what they have done means that they should be in the playoff. I think if you look at anyone else, the other teams that were on the bubble, you can look at all those teams and say, you should have done this better. Alabama, you shouldn't have lost to Texas. Texas, you should have beat Oklahoma. Georgia, you shouldn't have lost to Alabama. You can go to Florida State, and there's nothing you can say to them other than don't break your leg. And that, to me, is absurd. They won all of their games. They won a major conference. Their strength of schedule or strength of record was better than everyone else. To me, it's about you guys are making a TV show, which is fine, but that degrades the integrity of the game if we are going to pretend that sports is about being a meritocracy.
But there is not. That's the problem. You have a 4-team playoff with 5 Power 5 conferences, and they're always picking who they think is better and who's not as good. They do it the whole season. This wasn't the brand new one. They do it every week, and you fall in love with those rankings every week, bro.
Quick take from Graz. Go.
The average score of the semifinals in the history of the college football playoffs is 40-21. I think this is a committee that has strong incentive to avoid a 40-21 game, and I think that's probably something that's in their mind.
That's not business.
Heather, final word. Anything else? Anything we're leaving out?
One thing. Of all the people who have been yelling about this, I just want to say that no one has handled this in a classier way than Jordan Travis, who expressed his disappointment and then turned around and said, hey, Jalen Milroe, go win it all, man. And I think there's a lot of adults in the room who could take a page out of his playbook and just take a deep breath and everybody say, go on, man. Everybody figure it out. See who wins.
I like angry Heather. I like angry Heather. Angry Heather is a good Heather. We don't get enough of that. Let's go. All right.
The one thing that this is going to solve is that the conference champions will be in, period. Okay? So you're not going to have an undefeated Florida State being left out or anybody else. What this will make people angry about is this is going to be a very Big Ten SEC heavy 12-team playoff at Notre Dame because you have conference realignment. So your 12 teams could look very similar to Washington, Oregon, Texas, Oklahoma, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Georgia, Alabama, Notre Dame. There's 10 for you. Guess what
That's what
conferences
we
they're
want.
from? And now
That's
that
what we want.
That's what we want.
That's what we want.
We want more games for the college athletes. Yeah, it's just like it's more work for them, and it's not getting a better process. What we're going to then get to is the more respect that we have for those big conferences, and it's going to be an argument about the smaller conferences not getting in. Why have 12 teams if you're not going to make room for them?
Let me give Paul Finebaum the final word here. Go ahead, Paul.
Well, Greeny, I'm just entertained by it all, especially yesterday. I mean, we had the governor of Florida, the senator from Florida call for an investigation, a lawsuit. We had the former president of the United States blame this on the sitting governor. But I've agreed with the committee, but I'm thinking about changing because last night I had CNN on and they put up a tweet and this guy said, I support the committee. They were right. And the tweet was by O.J. Simpson.
So I'm on the opposite side of that, to be clear.
I don't.
This stuff doesn't matter, though.
You should have led with that. We had a whole different conversation, man.
I mean, it does matter. I know it's funny to laugh about politicians getting involved in all that stuff, but this is huge money for the schools. It's huge profile for the players. It matters. It's important. You see that schools, their fundraising, the academic quality of institutions are impacted by how well their football teams perform. It's like the research has supported that. So us just pretending like it's some dumb little game, who cares? Why do you care so much? That's why I'm angry, not because I care about Florida State, because this is it's unfair. They did their part, and they're going to be robbed of the opportunity for their success.
And I think after my rant yesterday, I could run for governor of Florida and win, to be completely honest with you. I'm feeling good there.
I'm not.
Give me something.